Good morning, ladies. Welcome to this masterclass. I am so excited to be streaming this into this Facebook group for you to watch at any time you need it. I just want to double check that I am definitely live because I did this training last night and there were so many technical issues. So I think we are live. If you're watching live or on replay, then just comment below live on replay. And if you've got any questions, please let me know as we go through this masterclass, which I think will be approximately 30 minutes, 35 minutes, with any questions that come up, which I want to help you with before you finish this training. Then, pop those in the comments. And I absolutely love and I really thrive on audience interaction. So even if you feel like, something has really resonated, let me know in the comments. If there's anything you want me to expand on, let me know. Literally just comment as much as you can, letting me know how you're feeling, what you're thinking, because my intention with any training that you come to, it's always for you to go away, hopefully with no questions, because I want to be able to answer all of your questions and help you feel confident going away. But even if you come away with questions, I want you to come away with less questions than what you started with. So as you know, this training is all around how to set and stick to, not just set them, but how to set and stick to healthy boundaries that you put in place. And I'm going to share my screen now because I've got some slides to go through with you. If you want to screenshot anything, or if you want me to give you the link to the PDF of the slides that you can print it out and maybe create your own workbook, then just let me know. I'm more than happy to provide that for you. And like I said, if anything comes up along the way, then pop it in the comments. No question is a silly question. Please know that you're completely in a safe space to ask as many questions as you need, because that is what I am here to do. So with all of that being said, welcome officially to this free training, how to confidently set and stick to healthy boundaries. This is going to be a really, really good session. And throughout this 30 minutes, there are certain things that you are going to learn that I'm going to take you through. We're going to start off by talking about what boundaries actually mean. I mean, what actually are they? I'd love for you to share in the comments, what are your thoughts on boundaries? What's your perception of boundaries? Do you have any? How do you feel about boundaries? So we're going to talk about what they actually mean and why they're so important. Why is this something that I talk about so much? Then we're going to move on to some tips that I want to share with you for you to start thinking about identifying the boundaries that you need to put in place, and why the why behind them is very, very important. We're then going to move on to learning how you can confidently and respectfully share your boundaries with other people, because at the end of the day, if you are like me, I mean, I'm 42 in a few days, and it's only been the last few years that I've actually confidently put and also, kept to those boundaries, stuck to them. So if you think about it, my whole entire life, I've not had any boundaries. And so everything and everyone around me will be used to a certain way of treating me. Not to say that people do it on purpose, but sometimes we do need to put these things in place to protect ourselves, our emotions, our energy, and more things that I'm going to go through with you today. But it's really important to learn how to communicate those boundaries, because if nobody knows what those boundaries are, if nobody knows what's acceptable and what isn't, then how can we expect them to treat us in a particular way? And this is actually one of the biggest or the most common difficulties that I find with women, not just mums, but I know we're all mums in here. And when you are a mum, you obviously have an added level of potential areas or potential situations where boundaries are absolutely needed. So we're going to spend a bit of time learning how to confidently and respectfully share your boundaries with those that need to know what they are. And then we're going to finish with what you can do in those moments where you feel like your boundaries are being crossed. So you've told everyone what they are, but then you have those situations where you think, actually, this is crossing my boundary. What do I do? So that is what we are going to cover today. I want to share a little bit about me, and I mean a little bit because we know each other. I know majority of you, we might not have been on trainings before. So I really want to give a bit of a background as to who I am and why this subject is so important. So I am a mum to a very active little boy. He's absolutely gorgeous. His name is Carter. He's at nursery 5 days a week. And 5 days a week, I actually have a full-time day job. Around all of that and all the things that we need to do in life, I run my own business, which is what I'm doing here today. And my passion has always been to help women feel so confident in themselves that they're able to create a life around them that they feel good in. And this wasn't always my reality. I haven't always felt this way. I haven't always felt like, yeah, I feel organized. I feel good. I feel like I'm able to do things for myself. I'm able to be present with my loved ones. It's not always been like that. And it got to about 2 years ago where I actually burnt out. And so everything that I do now is helping you put that support system in place so that you don't burn out. That's the intention. One thing that in my whole journey that has been so important is knowing and understanding all about boundaries. Because, for example, if you are somebody, and as a mum, I'm sure you can resonate with this. Let me know in the comments, but I'm sure you can resonate with the fact that we don't always have a lot of time for ourselves. We don't always have time to have a nice bath, in peace and quiet in the evening. We don't always have time to, go for a facial or have coffee with friends. We don't always have time to do the things that we actually treat as a luxury. But when we look after ourselves and fully treat ourselves with the love and kindness and respect that we treat others with, then you're more likely to be able to show up in a more present way with those, around you. And so having boundaries in place will help you do that. The most common perception that I find, particularly with mums, and I've been there too, is that the reason that we feel you can't do things for yourself is because you don't have time. But if you have boundaries, if you put boundaries in place and you confidently stick to them, then I assure you, you will start to notice such a massive difference. So that's a little bit about me and my journey. And I'd love to hear a little bit about you, who you are, maybe how old your little ones are. If you have any 3-year-olds, then I'm totally with you on the craziness that we are currently going through. So let's move on. What's your perception of boundaries? What do you think they are? How do you think others take boundaries? I really want to remind you throughout this session and beyond that boundaries are not about just saying no. When people need you, when people want your help, when people need to ask a favor, or where there's things that you want to be doing, but you can't because you're doing other things. It's not about saying no. It's not about you being that ogre, that person that's like, no, I'm not doing it. I used to think that they were, but they're really not. Boundaries are not about saying no. They're not about being that no person. But what they are about is you saying yes to yourself more than you do already. Someone said to me a good few years ago, and it's really stuck with me, the people or the things, because it's not just people that we need to put boundaries in place, and actually we set boundaries with ourselves, for ourselves too. But the more you are saying yes to people when you actually want to be saying no, think about the things that you're truly saying no to. So let me give you an example. A boundary that I put in place is I will only do a maximum of one evening session a week. And a session, I mean like a masterclass or a training. And I did this one last night. And I do that because I don't want to mess out on bath time and bedtime with my little boy. I really enjoy that time. It's fun. It becomes relaxing in the end. We read books and it's just so, so lovely. And I used to have trainings near enough every day of the week. If it wasn't a training I was hosting, it was a training I was attending for me to learn something. So I really felt like I missed out on a lot. So in that particular situation, if I'm constantly saying yes to attending trainings or hosting trainings, I'm actually saying no to my little boy. I'm actually saying no to having that lovely present moment at bath time and bedtime with my little boy. And I'm just not willing to sacrifice that. And so a lot of mindset and negativity and limiting beliefs came up for me around that. Because I'm like, if I am not doing this training, whether I'm hosting it or I am receiving the training, then I'm not going to progress. And I'm like, you have to get to a point where you just become fine with that, because what is more important? And so that is an example of how boundaries is not about you being that no person. It's just about you saying yes to yourself more than you do at the moment. So let's talk a little bit about what boundaries are. And I can't take credit for this explanation. I did get it off the internet. So complete credit to Google and whoever posted this. But boundaries refer to the limits, the guidelines, all the rules that define and protect our personal and interpersonal space, both physical and emotional. They are essential for maintaining healthy relationships, promoting self-respect, and fostering a sense of well-being. So in summary, boundaries protect your emotional, your mental, your physical, and your energetic, your energy well-being. They protect all of that. They also protect things like your time, your money, your memories. It protects things like your growth. So if you think about it, boundaries are like these gates in front of you that all of these things and people and experiences that want to, they don't want to drain you of energy or make you feel anything other than good. Of course they don't. But sometimes, those people and situations, they do become quite draining. And so having boundaries in place, it's almost like it stops all of that stuff coming in so it doesn't affect you. And that ultimately is what boundaries are. And so when you think about boundaries that you want to set, and this training is going to help plant that seed and get you to start thinking about it. If you leave this session and you feel like, I don't know exactly what my boundaries are, do not worry, don't rush this process, because you will start to be so mindful after today of what you are thinking, what you are feeling in your life. And ultimately your brain will pick up on it and will be like, oh, okay, maybe this is a boundary I could put in place. So don't rush the process. And sometimes boundaries that you set in maybe a month's time, you might not even think about it right now, because it's not until, we become so in tune with our mind and body that we notice that a boundary is needed. And so when you set boundaries, what you're actually doing is you're acknowledging your own worth. You're acknowledging the fact that you're worthy of that time for yourself. You're worthy of that present moment with your little boy at bath time and bedtime. You are present to do the things that you love and enjoy. You're worthy of all of that. And until you start to really see and feel and embody and believe that, then any work that you do from this session today, you might put it in place, but you'll find it quite hard to stick to, because you have to feel deserving of that. If you think about, what your reality looks like without those boundaries, think about what they would look like with them. And if you feel like you don't deserve that result or that outcome or that new reality, then you will find it hard to do this work. So really think about this. When you set boundaries, you are acknowledging your own worth, your own self-worth. And what it does is it tells others how you are willing to be treated. If you feel like people are not treating you the way that you would want them to, then that is because you need to set boundaries because you don't currently have them. And so that is what boundaries are all about. But where do you start? Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, you should set these boundaries. You should have these boundaries. You should do this. You should do that. The only time I ever say the word should is you should do what feels good for you. Something that makes me feel overwhelmed or stressed might not have the same effect on you, and vice versa. Boundaries are very unique. They are very unique and personal to you. So the only advice that I would give you is really pay attention again to how you're feeling, what you are thinking, and set boundaries in areas that you feel like you want to see some improvement. But here are some reflective questions to get you started. Where, and you can put these in the comments, where have you been saying yes to others or people, knowing that ultimately it would affect you negatively, and you actually really wanted to say no? Where have you been saying yes, where you actually wanted to say no? Another thing to think about is, what do you want to do more of that you can't at the moment? What kind of things have you been feeling like you really wanted to do or try, but maybe you've convinced yourself it's not possible to you, it's not possible for you because you don't have the time? Boundaries are things that help create that time, that help you claim that time back. So if there are any things that you feel like you've wanted to do, you want to be doing now, but you're not doing because you don't have the time, then that is a brilliant and the most perfect example of where boundaries need to be put in place. And I mentioned this already, but how would you like other people to treat you? If you feel like people are not treating you in the same way that you are treating them, then that is where a boundary needs to be put in place. So where have you been saying yes? Or what have you been saying yes? Or who have you been saying yes when actually you wanted to say no, but you felt like you couldn't? What do you want to do more of, but you feel like you can't at the moment? And how would you like others to treat you? We know that famous saying, treat others how you want to be treated. And if you feel like people are just taking the you-know-what, or situations are just, you feel like things and people are expecting more of you than you believe they should, how would you like to be treated? Don't worry about the how. Let's get the what, and then we do the how next. And let me know what boundaries come up for you at this point. So when you think about identifying boundaries that you want to put in place, telling people what those boundaries are and how to deal with situations where those boundaries are being crossed, what would you say is the most difficult part? Because the most difficult part that, and I find this commonly, especially amongst mums, the most common fear or feeling of the hardest part in this whole boundary process is actually figuring out what boundaries to set and also what to do when people cross them. But actually, it's the bit in the middle that we are now going to go on to. It's telling people what those boundaries are. That is the hardest part. Because in those moments, again, if you don't feel confident, if you don't know why you're setting them, if you're not clear, and you don't believe that you are deserving of how those boundaries will manifest into your life, when you are having conversations with people, and it doesn't mean to say that anyone would take these boundaries badly, it won't, it doesn't mean that at all. But you might have people that, might be a bit taken aback because they're just not used to that way of being. They're just not used to that pattern of behavior. And so we are now going to talk about that bit. We're going to talk about how you can confidently and calmly and respectfully communicate these boundaries to other people. So with that being said, let's talk about some of the common fears that come up around communicating boundaries. Let me know if any of these resonate with you. One of the most common fear is that you'll be rejected, that relationships will become strained, that people will no longer like you or respect you. Or maybe you'll set these boundaries and people just won't trust them, or not trust them, people just won't listen to them. Rejection is massive. And so is the fear of judgment. A lot of women worry that putting boundaries in place will make them appear like they're selfish or they just don't care. That it's selfish to put you first. It's selfish to prioritize your self-care. It's selfish to have expectations for other people or of other people. But one important thing to remember at this point is everybody around us, including you, myself, everybody in here, everyone outside of here, everyone has an expectation of how they want to be treated. But when it comes to treating other people, we treat them in a way that we believe they want to be treated. And until we know otherwise, that pattern will continue. But the fear around, appearing selfish or having high expectations, that is a massive thing. And also is the fear of conflict. So many women have said to me that when they think about communicating boundaries to people, it just makes them tense up and just cringe inside, because they believe that even if they go into that conversation calmly and respectfully, they believe that it's just not going to go well. It's going to end up in an argument. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that is going to be true for you, for them, for myself. I've had, interesting conversations, but none of them have turned into an argument, because there's things that I do beforehand, before I get into that conversation, which we're now going to go on to stop any kind of conflict. So those are the most common fears. And I really want you to know that if you feel like these things are holding you back from setting boundaries and communicating them, know that that's okay. I say this so much. It's not important that you have these fears in the first place. It's not important, because you're normal people, you're human beings. We have normal feelings and emotions, and these things happen, right? These fears are just normal things that we have, but our fears are here to keep us safe, to keep us within our comfort zone. And sometimes we need to branch out of that, but know that that is safe too. So when you've got your boundaries, identified, exactly what they are, and you're at this point where you are ready to share those boundaries with people that need to know, the first thing that I really want you to do before you even go into that conversation is I want you to be super clear of what those boundaries are. Nothing vague, nothing fluffy. You need to be super clear what they are. And you also need to know why you're doing that, why that boundary is important. Because when you go into those conversations, this will really help with your confidence. You know exactly what the boundary is. You know exactly why you put it in place. So if somebody asks you a question, or later on, if you feel like those boundaries are being crossed, you'll be able to go back to this moment and you're like, I need this boundary because of this, because of that. And your confidence will really shine through. And so when you are in that moment, you're very clear on your boundary, you know exactly why, and you're ready just to tell people. The best way of doing that is doing it respectfully, calmly, and do it in a way that you are able to communicate to them how you have been feeling. Explain what the boundary that you're putting in place is and why. So you've been feeling this, which is why you're putting this boundary in place, and this is why I want to do it. So for me, the boundary is that I've been feeling guilty for missing out on bath time and bedtime with my little boy, which means that I need to put this boundary in place that a maximum once a week, I will be available for some kind of evening commitment. And why? Because it's so important for me that I don't miss out on beautiful present time with my little boy. No one can argue with that. If you go to anybody, even if they get annoyed about it initially, that does, wear off. That's not a forever feeling. If you are able to calmly say, this is how I've been feeling, and as a result of that, I need to put this boundary in place, and this is why I'm putting it in place, nobody will be able to argue with that. And together you'd actually find a common ground that probably is a win-win for both of you. One thing I want to really be super clear is, if you are ever having a heated conversation or an argument with somebody, communicating boundaries is not the time to do that. It's not, because it won't go in. You won't say it the way that you want to. It will probably come over more aggressive than you want it to, or maybe not aggressive. It just won't be received well, and you won't stick to it, because later on you might think, oh, I overreacted, or I shouldn't have done this, and you'll retract from that boundary completely. So if you feel like something is brewing, I would really suggest you walk away from that situation, take a deep breath, and when you are feeling calm, when you're both feeling calm and you're talking about what happened, then bring the boundary conversation in at that point. But don't let an argument or a heated conversation or a challenging situation be the moment where you decide to set boundaries. You will probably find or feel like that's the best time to do it, because all of that emotion is there and you'll start to feel a bit braver, but it's really not the right time to do it. And so when you are having those conversations, really think about the tone of your voice, the words that you're using, and the body language that you are putting over. You can be respectful, you can be assertive, you can share your expectations, and you do it in a way that is received the way that you would be happy to have that conversation. So it's really important to do that. So when you've got your boundaries set, you know what they are, be super clear what they are and why you're setting them. When you're sitting down with the people that you need to, when you're having that conversation, you share how you've been feeling. And as a result of that, this is the boundary you're putting in place. And this is why it's so important. And this is why it's needed. Nobody will be able to argue with that. Always do it when the situation is calm, and you are being mindful of your tone of voice, the words that you're using, and the body language that you are presenting. Even if it is a difficult and uncomfortable conversation, the reason it's uncomfortable is because it's new to them. And the reason it will be uncomfortable to you the first time you do it is because it's the first time you are doing it. And you're doing it because you're putting your foot down and saying, I know that I deserve to be treated better. I know that I deserve to have this time with my little boy. I know that I do deserve to have this time for myself, having a bath once a week. And so it's really important to know all of these and really believe them, but know that you are so worthy of this, right? You are so deserving. You deserve to be treated the way that you want to be treated. And if you feel like that's not happening, then boundaries is something that you need to do. So you have got your boundaries. You've had that conversation that's gone really well. You feel good. They feel good. You know what is acceptable, and so do they. Sometimes you will have situations where you feel like, actually, my boundaries are being crossed. This isn't what I signed up for. This isn't what I wanted. And the most ideal situation is for you to realize it's happening before it's actually happened. Now, no, you don't need to be psychic. I appreciate how that sounds. But when you are so mindful and in tune with your mind and your body, which is your feelings, your emotions, your thoughts, and your beliefs, when you are so in tune with that, you can sometimes start to see these things happening before they actually become a thing. Because maybe you started to feel like your energy is being drained. Maybe you're starting to think, this isn't what I wanted. I don't want to be treated this way. And so you can have a very friendly conversation where you just remind them, actually, my boundary is this, and this is why it's important to me. And a lot of the time when boundaries get crossed, it's because people forget. When you do this work and you do this communication, I really want you to remember that you don't just share it once and then you just expect people to remember, because we just don't remember everything. And so you might have to remind them. So even if you feel like a boundary is being crossed, it doesn't necessarily mean that that person is just wanting to take the you know what. They are somebody who has just forgotten the previous conversation you had. So it's just a nice little reminder. Again, I talked about this earlier. If you find yourself in a situation where you need to walk away and take a breather, do it. If you feel like you are presented with a situation or you're in that moment where you think this could turn into an argument, walk away. Walk away. And I don't just mean turn your back on them and walk away, but you could just be like, okay, I can feel this escalating. And so I'm just going to take a minute, take a breather. I'll be back in 2 minutes and we can talk about it. That gives you time to calm yourself. That also gives them time to calm as well. Nothing gets resolved in an argument. I've talked about this already. The conversation is about reminding them in a calm yet assertive manner. Don't apologize for wanting to put these boundaries in place. When I first started doing it, it's so cringe thinking about it now, but it's what I felt like I needed. I'd be like, I'm really sorry, but I can't do that because I want to bath my little boy. I'm really sorry. I hope I haven't let you down. No, we don't apologize for having boundaries. Bearing in mind, they are protecting the things that we love the most, that we need the most, that we respect the most. And so in those conversations, it's just a nice, friendly, yet assertive reminder how you've been feeling, what the boundary is, and why. Sometimes, depending on the boundary, depending on the situation, depending how it's all played out and what's happened, you might be able to find a middle ground where you're happy and the other person is happy, or the other people are happy. If it is a boundary that is a categorical no, this is not acceptable, then keep going with that no, because that's what you need. But sometimes if you feel like the lines between the two are a bit fuzzy and you think, I actually don't mind doing it because I've got the time, I've got the energy, it's not encroaching on anything, that I want to be doing, or that's important to me, important enough to say no. If you feel like in those situations, actually, I know my boundary is this, but my little boy is at his friends for the evening. Actually, I can do that session. I can do that second session. And that is perfect. Again, remember at the beginning, I said setting boundaries is not all about saying no, but it is about saying yes to yourself more. And so you might have times where your boundaries aren't changed, you're not giving in, you're able to make them quite flexible. you're able to say, actually, in this moment, I know why I had this boundary in the first place, but it's not. But if I do this thing, then it's not going to be at the detriment of me or anyone else around me. And so if you can find a middle ground, find it. But if it is a categorical no, stick to that. Because everything that you do from this moment on, from the moment you share those boundaries, you tell people what they are, how you treat any kind of situation where your boundaries are being crossed, then that will create a pattern of what they expect in the future. So that's so, so important. You are doing this work. If you need a reminder, you are doing this work because you want people to know how you should be treated. You want people to treat you with the respect, with the love, everything. You want people to treat you in a way that you treat them, and to know it's not acceptable to treat you in any other way. So you have to see yourself as being worthy of being treated differently to what you have accepted in the past for this to work. If you don't believe you're worthy of it, if you don't believe that you deserve what or how these boundaries will manifest for you, then it's going to be quite a hard battle to do this work and to stick to it. So I really want you to remind yourself whenever you are doing anything around boundary work, and actually most things in life, know that you deserve it. You deserve to be treated the way that you would treat other people. So I really want you to remember that. And so I want to know what questions are coming up for you. Let me know in the comments. Is there anything that you want me to explain? You want me to give clarity on? Let me know. Let me know how you feel about boundaries, how you're feeling now. Are there any boundaries that you are like, I definitely need to put these in place? Are there any questions coming up for you around the types of boundaries, sharing those boundaries, sticking to those boundaries? Let me know how you're feeling about this entire training and how you can see or what you kind of need now in order for this to become your reality. Don't worry if it's not clear for you right now. I'm not going anywhere. I am not somebody who puts these trainings on and then I leave you to it. And so I want you to know that you are fully, fully supported. We have this amazing group with other mums just like you. I'm one of them. And you are fully, fully supported. This is a safe space for you to share anything. And so if you feel like you do need support after this time, then obviously you have this Facebook group. I'm going to be creating more material to post on my YouTube channel for you that will give you tips and techniques and really be a place of inspiration and motivation. And so if you feel like you need more support, more in-depth, maybe more unique or personal support, then I am also here on a one-to-one basis if you need that kind of support. If you do feel like one-to-one support and accountability is something you need, then send me a message or you can comment below and we can talk about it and see how it works. But basically what happens is I have a 4-week period where I work with mums, and throughout those 4 weeks, we have a call every other week. We talk about how you're feeling, what you want to achieve from it, what you want your reality to look like. And we have a 60-minute call where we can basically go through everything. You get coaching, you get support, you get accountability. But what you also get is you get support throughout those 4 weeks, so in between those calls. So if you've got any questions, if you want to work through a real life situation, you don't have to wait another 2 weeks for your call. You can just send me a message and we can work through it together. And that is so special because I really want you to be able to do this work, firstly. I also want you to be able to do it with confidence. And there's nothing worse than learning something and then you go to put it in place and it doesn't go the way that you wanted it to or expected or hoped it would. And so what do? You revert back to how it's always been. And so it's really important for me and for you to have that support there if you do need it. And then after those 4 weeks, we can continue, or you can use this Facebook group, or you can use the material that I post on my YouTube channel to help support you going forward. So if you would like to talk to me about my one-to-one coaching, then just send me a message or comment below and we can absolutely talk about it or get on a call, whatever you need. So that, my loves, is the end of this session. I hope that you have found it helpful. I hope that it's given you food for thought. I more importantly hope that you can see why it's so important to have boundaries in place. I hope that you can see that you're worthy of putting these boundaries in place so that you are treated the way that you treat other people, the way that you should be treated, and actually how putting these boundaries and communicating them doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a bad person that people think badly of you. It really, really doesn't. That fear, it's a common fear. It's a valid fear. It's there because it wants to keep you safe. It wants to keep you in your comfort zone. And sometimes we have to go outside of our comfort zone. And so it's so important to do this work and not just do it once, but continue doing it. So I hope you found it helpful. I can't wait to continue this conversation in the comments. And if you've got anything that you want to reach out to me, then my DMs are always open. Thank you so much for being here. If you've been watching the replay, then comment replay so I know that you are here. And I will see you in this group very soon. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you very soon. Bye, ladies.